Welcome one and all to Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, a game almost 15 years in the making after Activision inadvertently bought and then sat on the rights until the Insane Trilogy showed that there was still some blood left in the rock to wring out through Crash Racing's microtransactions. Thankfully for all of us, Crash 4 was less of a bullshit sandwich, and so we get to see what Toys for Bob's take on a totally new Crash Bandicoot experience is for the UHD age. If you followed our coverage on the series from a while ago and or the news around this game, you would already know that Crash 4 has decided to dump almost half to two-thirds of the Crash universe into the non-canon bin of history, Star Wars style. So all of those years of screwing around with hub worlds, RPG mechanics, and bad jokes have been thrown away, leaving us with Crash 4 canonically taking place immediately after Cortex escapes that damned alternate universe he got himself trapped in after Crash 3's time-traveling shenanigans. A point that Toys for Bob took time out of the player's day to point out with this hilarious exchange.
Well, I'm sensing a real fraught history here. How many times have you beaten this clown anyway?
3.
Really? Only 3? Funny. Seemed like more.
The game begins with Cortex and company doing something, end of the world takeover plan as the usual, and through that dastardly idea to destroy Crash for the 4th time, manages to get the entire band back together of the classic trilogy villains led by Cortex and Tropy to demolish Crash and Coco. In order to combat the team-up, Crash needs to reunite with another series of lost masks to access special platforming powers to stop their enhanced powers. They include time manipulation, gravity reversal, and spinning. Forever! They're interesting gimmicks at the very least, but not a lot more as they're used for a little part of a few levels and then they're discarded pretty quickly for more ideas and challenges that Toys for Bob can think of later on in the level. If nothing else, Toys for Bob went ham with this game to make a platformer that would hopefully throw this game in the face of a totally new generation with tons of levels and up-to-snuff visuals that should mostly please the fans of the original trilogy, but on the more important flip side, as we saw from the intro of this video, Crash 4 can be a vicious game when it wants to be. By the end of the game, I was getting fatigued, just like the ending of a classic Rare game, and even to the point where I'd wanted to destroy my controller, my chair, and my TV all at the same time in pure frustration. It's honestly just a bad difficulty curve, and that would make it easy to burn out on the last couple worlds because a lot of the problem areas are full, top to bottom, of instant death pits. The slog of difficulty got to be such an issue that I was actively skipping the game's bonus content and hoping that I wouldn't find it in general just so I could get through the main story to make this video. Which is unfair because the bonus content in Crash 4 is absolutely fantastic. It's well thought out, it's actually pretty challenging to the point where I was actively avoiding it because it just got too annoying. But I honestly can't say that it's not well received by me. I love the love that they put in, that they, on top of having this really well built and thought out and expansive, vibrant main story, they also have the Cortex files that you get if you collect the collectible VHS tapes in every level. That unlocks a challenge level where you play as Cortex, and that has more to do with box collectibles, I think, because I honestly never completed a damn one just because they were so freaking hard. And on top of that, you have specific levels in the worlds. A couple of them, at least one per world, where you get to go on an alternate story path. They call them alternate story paths, but that's honestly not really true, because all it really does is it shows an alternate story where one of the other characters arrives at the same level at the same time that you already played through, and they will do something with their own special abilities to unlock a path so that the main character, Crash, can continue going through the level. And you'll see this in Crash's level 2, which is where, the question marks end up, and I think that unlocks these levels. So you also have that, and it also allows you more time to play as the additional characters outside of their own levels, which are attached side stories to the actual mainline quest in of themselves. So you have plenty of extra levels and content to find. And if you are a platformer nut, honestly, it's really well done. It's exceptional. It's a lot of creativity, hard work, and perseverance put in from Toys for Bob to have this extra content. It's just, again, the difficulty problems means that I'm actively disincentivized from doing any of it, so I guess it's a mixed bag, but I really have to point it out because it's just so well done. It's impossible to ignore, and at least they're trying to do new things. These are new things. These are welcome things. They just have to be integrated into a logical, reasonable difficulty curve, not whatever jagged mess Toys for Bob thinks should be the difficulty curve, because this ain't exactly how Dark Souls should do it. I guess Super Mario World would be the better example. Just this is wrong. This could be improved. I love that it's here, but let's hammer out these kinks, Toys for Bob. Let's spend some time, do a Crash 5, and get this to where it should be. Because it's great, but we can do better. It's already plenty long and full of involving levels enough, which I would appreciate if the level design was done to be an accessible challenge rather than a brick wall of pain and suffering, you know? Something like a Super Mario World where you can go after the hidden content, but the main path of the game is more or less challenging enough to be fun rather than irritatingly obtuse. Crash 4 nominally tries to help this process of dying over and over and over again in one particular area by granting the player power-ups after too many deaths, which is a good idea except for the fact that the worst parts of the game are areas of instant death pits, which the power-ups do not help with in the damned slightest. If I'm going to be hitting a section with a 50 death mark, maybe giving me a skip option would have been the better solution, Toys for Bob. I wish I could have ended up praising the bountiful content in this game because Toys for Bob worked really, really hard and creatively to make this game line up with the Naughty Dog trilogy, while also graphically enhancing it for the modern age of consoles that would have been at the time of this game's release. It is incredibly nice and heartwarming to see that an Activision umbrella company has this level of passion, creativity, and is full of new ideas to put their own mark on a series that has been long neglected. But it's hard to give out that asterisk-less praise when a bunch of these levels are so cruelly designed that it becomes actively disincentivizing to go after him and complete the back half of this game. Not only are there a bunch of different ideas, biomes, and challenge ideas for the classic Crash levels, but throughout the story, other characters also get unlocked for the player to take control of in their own levels, which have wildly different gameplay. Dingodile comes back, Crash's big sister from the original game, and even towards the end, Cortex joins the squad for some odd reason. Crash 4 even does something I wish Mario games would have started doing back in 2008. Actual story arcs for this game. The multiple characters each have their own personality and their own motivation for getting involved in the plot, such as Dingodile's quest of getting back to his restaurant after he was cosmically pulled into this alternate dimension for really no reason. Toys for Bob brought on a fantastic voice cast as well for this game, along with the veteran actors of these old characters, especially Lex Lang as Cortex, who seems to always be available to play the old nutcase. Toys for Bob also gets some laurels for the work put in to craft a vibrant world for the game among this wide variety of level types. It's kind of like Crash 3, where we saw a bunch of different landscapes that were never used before, since that game was a time-hopping jaunt. This game has some watery canyons, a field of factories, and even a futuristic city in the back half. And throughout the game, you'll also be having some high-production boss battles with the classic villains such as Embryo, Cortex, and the two Entropies. While it is fantastic that Toys for Bob shows so much care for the old IP that they've been given to shepherd by Activision Blizzard, that terrifying difficulty in this game pretty much spoils it across the board in the back half, as I've said before. How it's implemented in It's About Time is just completely non-encouraging, which is a true shame, since on top of the effort put in, Toys for Bob included a lot of those high-skill rewarded skins for completing the game's relic challenges such as low lives lost, time trials, and collectibles and the boxes as per tradition. While I do think it's a good idea to have these rewards available for the devoted fans of this game to get something tangible out of their dedication to doing everything this game has to offer, I also think they should have let some more skins trickle down to the casual audience, since I think there's only one skin throughout the game that's just given for level completion, which frankly is a good skin, I will admit that. The classic Crash skin, exactly like the classic Mario skin from Super Mario Odyssey, looks great and nostalgic, and it fits really well even in this UHD game that is being pulled out of the PlayStation era. I just really wish there were a few more options for the lower skilled audience, since there are simply tons of skins available in total for those hardcore fans that it's honestly kind of weird that there weren't more for the other half of the audience that is bigger, so it just seems kinda odd. What compounds the frustration are a couple mechanical issues as well. Crash has always had an obtuse feeling control scheme where it's a little bit less precise and more floaty than other platformers, and that's probably owing to Crash's intention to be a 3D platformer, which always necessitates these workarounds and the design works to actually work correctly, comparable to a 2D platformer, which can be a little tighter because there's not so many variables up in the air and margins for error. Since you're spending a second or two more in the air on the jumps, that also provides more time for the player to overcompensate right into a pit that the game loves to dot around every level in every place in the entire game. Other than that, across the board, it's a pretty nicely controlling game. It's consistent and is built to allow for some fast-paced action in parts. I just wish it could have been fully awarded for its controls, like, again, Super Mario World. But that's really not Crash's remit. Crash's remit seems to be being irritating and obtuse and kind of just being a general annoyance. Honestly, the issues in separating It's About Time from my ability to give it a big trophy at the end of the day is probably that dog-headed attitude towards preserving the identity of the original trilogy. There are certainly some famous difficulty walls throughout those three games that have become the stuff of legend, but as I've seen with other attempts to reboot old IPs for whatever frickin' reason, probably iconography, the developers like to preserve the iconic hard-ass portions of old games for the new generation, like Medusa heads for Castlevania. I have never understood these decisions to preserve the annoyance of old games. There's a reason why emulators include save state buttons and other user convenience has become such an important part of design works in modern games. It's because the annoying shit we had to deal with in old games was actually really annoying, and it's better if we leave most of it behind. By all means, redesign your iconic hard levels and enemies, bring them back, but don't keep them verbatim, because all that really does is mimic the exacerbation rather than give you the member berries effect that you think it will. Crash 4 was an exceptionally well-designed game, but it still ultimately fell on its own sword in parts against the altar of reliving the glory days without update. I'm sure for the old audience, this is the perfect game, but in terms of bringing Crash to a new audience, I severely doubt this game is going to do it. The game is too obtuse in the back half. It's too full of these roadblocks and aggravation and consistent death spirals. I can certainly appreciate the effort put in, and I can see the love for an old mascot platformer from the golden years from Toys for Bob, but there's a way to reboot and there's a way not to, and unfortunately I have to say that this isn't the way. Bob, I seriously can't recommend the game to most audiences because of its hard-assed ending. I want to recommend games that you can have a good time with from front to back, not the game that suckers you in at the beginning with its high-class visuals and multiple characters, tons of shiny new levels, and then smacks you in the back of the head with a difficulty right angle. That's my conclusion on the return of Crash. Do with it what you will. Maybe things will improve in a possible Crash 5. But anyway, here's my final score. and I will wish you all out there watching the video a victory for gamers. I hope you have a good rest of your night for whatever you're planning on doing afterwards.